With The Witcher 3 being a modern classic, the benchmark of how to make an RPG, Netflix's adaptation of the story being very popular, yes I said popular, not good, and multiple new titles on the horizon, the franchise's future has never seemed brighter. But did you know that there were games in the series before Witcher 3? Well, if you're not a complete idiot, you probably did, because it says so right in the title, but I can't think of a better hook right now, so you'll just have to play along and say, what? There's a Witcher 1 and 2? Should I play those before 3? I'm about as educated on this series as Joe Biden on speaking incoherent English.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him...
You did good things, Joe.
So we'll just have to find the answer to that question together by playing the very first Witcher game. Welcome to the Backlog project, where we play through a gigantic backlog of games and you get to choose which one will be covered next. Just head down to the description of the video to take part in our weekly poll and pick your favorite. Jumping into the game greets you with a lengthy cutscene of our yet unnamed hero fighting a very ugly monster, using potions, traps, and ornate swordplay to drive it off, only to take a nap in a coffin and waking up to a beautiful naked redhead just lying outside of his makeshift bed. If that confuses you, we're in the same boat.
Did we just become best friends? Yup!
Because it all seems very random and like a needless show of 2007 animation talent. Some people, however, are already getting their pitchforks ready because what I just said annoyed them spectacularly. So I got what I wanted and can now be serious. An important tidbit to understand what's going on here. The Witcher game series is based off the novel series of the same name, written by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski. I would apologize for butchering his name, but the dude is a dickhead and would probably just take offense anyways, so I can't really be bothered. The books are great though, you should absolutely read them. Anyways, the game series is an adaptation of the novels, but takes place after the novel saga's ending, which means non-readers are missing 8 books worth of story, characters, and references. CD Projekt Red, the game's developer, had an ingenious idea to circumvent that problem. Just give the main character amnesia. It sounds a bit dumb and frankly can feel tacked on at times, but at least it puts the player into the same situation as the protagonist. They don't know shit. All we know is that we're Geralt of Rivia, a witcher living with some other witchers at the mountain fortress Kaer Morhen, which acts as their base of operations and training facility for new witchers. What's a witcher? They're basically mutated humans that have been fed poisonous but body-enhancing potions since childhood and have thus developed a resistance to said potions, which enables them to use their alchemic brewings to enhance their combat abilities. This sounds complicated, and it certainly is. Even though the amnesia shtick helps in making the constant exposition feel more natural, you still get bombarded by established concepts and facts to the point where the game had to include a glossary that gives you an in-depth explanation on every in-universe phrase, character, item, or event you come across. If you want to really get lost in a fantasy world, this is exactly the game you want to play. There is so much optional dialogue from hundreds of characters, glossary entries that could fill a whole book or 3 on their own, and a very tightly built lore that you can be sure this will quickly become one of your favorite fantasy worlds. Or you ignore all of what I said and just follow the storyline, which without taking said deep dive becomes a muddled mess of characters, concepts, and events that will leave you confused and barely acts as motivation to keep playing the game. Kaer Morhen gets attacked by a group called the Salamandra, who are trying to steal the Witcher's alchemical secrets for reasons unknown. They succeed and even manage to kill a Witcher. In trying to get their stolen goods back and avenging their comrade, Geralt and the remaining Witchers split up in different directions. Your adventure will lead you through multiple loosely connected chapters, with most of them introducing a new set of characters and locations, and it all comes together in the end. Somewhat. Geralt quickly gets caught up in schemes by all sorts of political figures, and while the plot dips its toes into racism, classism, idealism, and all sorts of other isms, it never really explores those concepts in a satisfying manner, leaving you with a story that jumps around a lot in themes, never really feeling coherent in its message. If you're only playing this game for the main story, the only real saving grace here is that Geralt is pretty badass. He's basically medieval fantasy Kiryu Kazuma from Yakuza, and his super corny lines and deep manly voice managed to stay just beneath the cringe line to blend together into a very entertaining protagonist. The fact that he's actually written really well and layered also helps, but it's hard to get over his corny presentation. Visually, The Witcher oozes that mid-2000s Western RPG charm, constantly reused, barely human-looking character models with facial expressions that make a 40-year-old office worker who just lost his wife and children to the hot fitness center coach look full of life are just one of the many, we had barely any budget for this, but still wanted to make it good, things you will see during your journey. This is probably very much an individual love it or hate it situation, because even if things don't really look objectively good from a modern perspective, I personally find the games look to be endearing and refreshing. In a time where many games take a, for my taste, way too realistic approach to character design. Something I just can't put down to personal preference though are the animations. I can look past dialogue and cutscenes looking a bit rough due to the age, but they could have at least made Geralt look good when moving through the world, especially in combat. Geralt just looks like he just had himself some Chipotle and really needs to finish that battle quick before something bad happens, especially when you get used to the combat system and pull off combos that become faster and faster. The combat doesn't invoke any feeling of epic or even just seriousness. It becomes the laughing stock of the game and can really take you out of the experience. The world itself, however, is meticulously crafted to be immersive and coherent, be it far-reaching plains or narrow cave systems, rural villages, or the castle town. Everything tells you that this is a world that you can dive into and feel like it's worth exploring, even if it's just to find the odd vista or two. I've personally found myself walking around the world quite a bit just to immerse myself in the atmosphere of each area. A second, maybe even more important pillar of this immersion is the game's soundtrack, consisting of a staggering 120 tracks composed by Adam Skorupa and Paul Blaschuk. Atmospheric medieval fantasy music isn't exactly a rarity in video games, but making it memorable and distinguishable amongst the plethora of similar tracks out there certainly is. Heavy use of acoustic guitars combined with vocals, deep brass, and beautiful strings give the world of The Witcher a very distinct sound. You will inevitably connect back to your time with the game if you listen to them on their own. It doesn't stop with atmospherical tracks though. Rock-inspired combat music, cave and dungeon tracks that borderline on horror sounds, and in stark contrast, the happy-go-lucky tavern dance music will make each new event or location you find into a memorable experience. The voice acting, on the other hand, is more of a mixed bag. While Geralt gets away with having a very fitting, if not really nuanced voice, and some other prominent characters being voiced good to well enough, the supporting cast and side characters range from bad
The world will perish amidst ice and be reborn with a new sun
to baddest. It's a shame that one of the biggest selling points of a Western RPG, the fact that it's fully voice acted, ends up acting as a detriment to what is otherwise a very immersive experience. It's hard to take a sub-story about an abandoned kid seriously when the kid sounds like his parents told him they'd go to McDonald's, and the McDonald's turned out to be an art museum where the parents make him read the info blurbs on the exhibitions out loud. Enjoying the video so far? That like button to let YouTube know that this video is worth showing to more people. Thank you. Like many RPGs of this kind, The Witcher operates on a quest system with story, main, and side quests that are surprisingly interconnected. But wait, story and main quests? What's even the difference?
They're the same picture.
Well, story quests are exactly that. They are purely there to further the story and only the story. They offer very little in terms of world building, exploration, or even rewards. They are your beeline through the plot of The Witcher. Main quests differ in the sense that they also involve the important characters in the game and can affect the outcome of story events, even the ending itself, but aren't technically needed to complete the game. Let me give you an example to make it a bit more palpable. The game's story prominently features a character that is, in truth, a werewolf that rampages through the city at night. However, the whole werewolf thing can theoretically be ignored because it's not a story quest. If you do it, however, said character might not fight you in the story or even become an ally. The game features an impressive number of branches like that, which makes exploring the areas to find more quests always worth doing, not just for potential items and XP, but also because it makes the whole game world feel much more connected and alive. Side quests are usually exempt from that, offering unique stories cut off from the main narrative that mostly serve as world building or references to the books, giving you a chance to dive deeper into the Witcher universe without forcing players that only want the story to waste 5 or more hours per chapter on unrelated dialogue. Speaking of chapters, the game features 5 full chapters as well as a pro and epilogue chapter, each with their own new area. You can, with some exceptions, still travel between chapters and complete old quests, but some of them are specific and can be accidentally skipped, so it's usually best to do everything you want before moving on to the next zone. Since Witchers are known for their fighting skills, that's also what you'll be doing most of the time. Killing people and monsters alike, you slice your way through adversaries with your trusty steel and silver swords, magic, and all sorts of secondary weapons like axes and daggers. The latter are completely useless, by the way, giving you no discernible advantage over just using your main weapons. In fact, I always just sold these for some extra cash because I found myself never using them anyways. You might have asked yourself why Geralt is using 2 different swords, but not both at the same time. Well, Witchers carry a steel sword meant for killing people and a silver sword meant for killing monsters. This is also reflected in the gameplay, where you deal next to no damage if you use the wrong weapon on an opponent. Due to this, you can switch between both swords on the fly, even in combat, so you can't get locked in an unwinnable fight. Since the distinction between man and monster is fairly obvious most of the time, having just this little feature as the core of your combat system would be kind of boring. So CD Projekt Red opted to build the combat around a stance system. Geralt can take one of 3 stances called styles during battle to react to his opponent's weaknesses. The strong style is meant to overpower big, slow and armored opponents, while the fast style aims to break through lesser defended foes by sheer speed and agility. The third is called the group style and does exactly what you'd expect. As soon as you're fighting more than one opponent, this is what you want to use because it uses wide sweeps to deal with multiple enemies at once. While all of this sounds engaging enough on paper, in actual gameplay it boils down to just learning which weapon and style works best against your enemy, either by trial and error or reading the glossary entries and then going to town on them. To add a bit more spice to the sword fighting, the game also features a combo system that makes it feel like a way too easy rhythm game. If you press the attack button during a specific point of the current attack animation, indicated by your mouse cursor glowing red, Geralt will combo into the next move in a fluid motion. Each successful combo counter gives you increased damage and attack speed for as long as you can hold the combo, and since you can carry your stacks into the next combo by just not messing up the timing, this can be done in perpetuity, to the point where you are so quick and fast that no enemy has a chance of retaliation after you manage to kick off a decent string. While the idea is fun, it also becomes very boring after a few times because it's literally always the exact same thing. The timings never change, and your best course of action in combat is always to go for a high combo counter, making the combat very repetitive. Now, the word Witcher wouldn't really apply to anyone who can't do a bit of witching, so let's take a look at the game's magic system. called Witcher signs. Sometimes while you're out and exploring the world, you'll come across stone monuments, and touching them will teach you a new spell. In total, Geralt can learn 5 signs called Ard, Axii, Igni, Quen, and Erden. As Geralt himself puts it, Witchers aren't mages and thus only able to use very simple magic, and he hits the nail on its head with that statement. Magic in this game isn't a second style of fighting, but more of a supportive nature. Ard, or air, is able to knock enemies off their feet, allowing Geralt to perform devastating special moves, while Quen, or earth, makes Geralt immune to damage for a while, but also unable to attack. Useful for using some potions in combat or running away, but not much else. As you can see, the signs are mostly situational, and even fully upgraded will not become a core part of your combat toolkit. In fact, I've barely used more than the odd Quen in dicey situations and still got through the game fine on the highest difficulty. I just said fully upgraded magic, right? As is tradition in any good role-playing game, Geralt comes with a plethora of skill trees that you can master by leveling up. Each level gives you a set number of skill points. The higher you are, the more you get, and you can use them to unlock all sorts of stuff, ranging from new combos and stat increases to modifiers for your magic and making your alchemy more potent. Even if you do everything the game offers you, you won't get nearly enough skill points to complete each tree, and you can't reset your skills. So think well on what you want to improve on. Not that the game is really hard enough to make wrong talents much of an issue, but that's a whole other talking point. Those alchemic potions aren't just a neat bit of lore, they also serve an integral part of The Witcher's gameplay loop. See, there are a lot of items in this game, many of which are used as ingredients for alchemy, and you can do that in one of 2 ways. Either you follow a recipe, sources of which can be shops, treasure chests, or even quest rewards, or you experiment and find a working combination on your own. The end result will be one of countless different potions, weapon oils, and bombs that can be used for various effects. While bombs and oils are rather simple and self-explanatory in their usage, potions will poison Geralt's body and are thus to be used with caution. What that means in gameplay terms is that each potion increases your toxicity gauge by a fixed amount, and said gauge will give you several negative status effects as you fill it, killing you when it's completely full. Thankfully, this toxicity only lasts as long as the potion, so it mostly just acts as a limiter to how many potions you can use in conjunction. This limit makes a lot of sense once you see how strong the effects of these potions are, constantly recovering HP, increasing dealt damage by up to 100%, or even allowing you to see in the dark. This gives the game's combat a bit more nuance and also realism, as it has you preparing for situations by collecting ingredients and using alchemy to your advantage in all sorts of situations the game might hit you with. If you sit here thinking, that sounds like a pain, just let me kill stuff, you're in luck. The game is balanced with alchemy in mind, and the easier modes will let you get by with just moderate combat skill. Only the hardest difficulty really requires potions at all, and even that can mostly be trivialized by always having some decent ones on hand and not rushing through the game without any resource management. Maybe a bit of a nitpick, but I quickly want to address something that annoyed the hell out of me during my playthrough. Menu controls. Not only are the menus convoluted and hard to navigate as is, your mouse also resets to the middle of the screen whenever you open some sort of UI element. This is especially annoying when looting because it means you navigate your mouse to the object and then have to navigate it again to actually loot stuff from the menu. This could have easily been solved by either implementing auto loot or a hotkey for looting everything, but since both of these do not exist in the game, killing off groups of enemies or exploring a dungeon is often a hassle due to the sheer amount of extra work you need to put in to do what should be natural in any RPG. A medieval fantasy setting wouldn't be complete without offering some recreation in local taverns, and The Witcher solves that problem by offering 3 different minigames to bet your hard-earned gold on. Dice poker is probably the most engaging of these and gives you 5 dice to throw, which make up your hand. Your goal here is to get a hand, much like in poker, pair, straights, full house, it's all here for you to strategize with. But how would you strategize throwing dice? Well, once both parties have thrown, they can see both players' hands and get to decide which of their dice to throw again. This allows strategic reading of not only the quality of your own hand, but also that of the enemy. Ultimately, the game is still down to luck, but the strategic element makes it a fun minigame to play a round or two of whenever you find an opponent. The game also offers fist fighting and drinking contests, whereas fist fighting is basically just a bare hands combat mode that is way too easy. Drinking is drinking. You just buy drinks from the waitress and share them with your opponent as long as you can. There is no luck, strategy, or skill involved in this, just pure leveling of the alcohol resistance stat. Not exactly my favorite type of entertainment, especially since it leaves you drunk afterwards, which makes walking around a pain in the ass, but also because there's absolutely no nuance to it. The enhanced edition of The Witcher also adds some new scenarios to the game that let you dive even deeper in, only that most of them kind of suck. Only 2 of the 7 included adventures are even voice acted, and even they aren't very interesting or in any way relevant to the plot of the actual game. The reason for that is that, from what I can tell, these adventures were fan-made, and some of the best ones got added to the actual game through a contest, with 2 of them even receiving official voice acting. While this is pretty cool, I would be lying if I said that I had a lot of fun with these, especially compared to the main game. Alright, now that we talked about everything the game has to offer, it's time to announce my verdict on this game.
I missed you so. Let's see if the best bed in Kaer Morhen can hold us.
You didn't really think I wouldn't talk about this, did you? Witchers are not just known for their battle prowess and wit, but also their libido. So it stands to reason that the game gives you ample opportunity to lay with the local womenfolk. From main characters to slums whores, you can sleep with over 25 women who each get their own cutscene and sex card. Yep. Sex card. That's a thing in Witcher. So basically, instead of seeing the action firsthand, you only get a little blurred cutscene, and then a very lewd artwork of the woman you just seduced pops up on screen. These cards even serve somewhat of a purpose other than badges of horniness. Each card unlocks the glossary entry for the character it depicts, so if you want all the juicy lore, you'll have to become the super seducer. Wait, wrong game. Some of the women are pretty easy to convince with flowers, money, or just the golden tongue. For every pervert out there watching this means being eloquent, alright? Others, however, require you to give them specific items at specific times or have their rewards locked behind lengthy quest lines. I know that a system like that might not be looked upon very kindly nowadays, especially since the game doesn't allow for any non-straight interactions. I don't really see a problem here though, since Geralt and the whole game world is well established and what you can and can't do with the system lies well within those boundaries. Also, it's just fun to find ways to flirt up the various women of the game, but maybe that's just me. Probably not, we're all perverts. The first Witcher game is certainly an odd duck in the vast world of role-playing games, and you can definitely notice the limited budget that CD Projekt Red had to work with in not just visual presentation and voice acting, but also the sparse gameplay variety and player freedom. More than a Western RPG, I'd classify The Witcher as a very RPG-ified action-adventure. You follow a linear, albeit influenceable story, fight tons of enemies in a unique, if flawed, combat system, and get to see gorgeous vistas, but hardly have the opportunity to explore the vast world the game lays before you. First and foremost, The Witcher is a thorough love letter to the book series, and it took every opportunity to make this game as immersive of an experience as it could. Even if the actual game experience suffers for it, this is still a superb use of your time if you want to dive deep into an expertly crafted fantasy world that you will keep wanting to go back to with its rich lore, love, and hateable characters and atmospheric music. After completing The Witcher Enhanced Edition, we had 33 hours and 36 minutes of total playtime, 130 quests completed, 89 skill points assigned, 7 adventures finished, 28 character cards collected, obviously for completion's sake. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always keep that backlog rolling.